Christina, welcome back. Today we're going to be working with the Spellbinders December 2023 Stamp and Die of the Month. I'm starting off with some Bristol cardstock that I am going to ink up with some Concord and Ninth Ballet Slipper ink. I absolutely love this ink color. It is so pretty, and I'm going to be using the Bristol cardstock because I really love the way it blends. I find it so much easier to blend my ink when I use this cardstock. I'm just blending out the pink ink, making sure I have a nice even coating on the Bristol cardstock, and making sure I have it spread out enough so that when I go to stamp my die, or my stamp rather, it's gonna, the pink will show through the background. I'm gonna stamp out the love, which is gonna be our main focal point of our card, with some VersaMark ink because I'm going to be doing some embossing with it. I'm going to use my anti-static powder just to make sure that I don't have any of residue or sticky or lotion or anything like that on my cardstock, so that the embossing powder only sticks to that. I love my mini Misti, and inside my mini Misti I have my waffle flower grip mat that holds my cardstock in place, so I don't have to worry about where I left my magnet last or what my magnet is stuck to that holds my cardstock in place. Using the grip mat will keep everything in place for me, and it makes it so much easier. So again, I'm stamping this out using my VersaMark ink, and I'm using my Pink Fresh Studio stamp press, I think is what it's called. I'll have it linked in the description below if you want to check it out. It is great for making sure that, especially the larger sentiments and larger stamps, that we get a nice even coating. And I did stamp this out twice just to make sure that I did get it nice and covered and transferred onto the cardstock, since it is a brand new stamp. I'm going to use a piece of cardstock as a catcher for my embossing powder. I always fold my scrap paper in half, just makes it easier for funneling my extra embossing powder back into the container. I'm using Ranger's Liquid Platinum Embossing Powder, which is one of my favorite metallic looking embossing powders. Once I have that done, I'm just going to grab my heat gun and heat this up, and I love the shine that is left with this metallic powder. I just find it really pretty. It's really hard to see straight on with the camera, but when you tilt it, you can kind of get a nice good look at that. The kits come every month with just the stamp, or you can do the stamp and die. So I have the coordinating die, and there's lots of great dies in this set. There's hearts, there's a strip for the sentiments, and then there's the large love folk, which is going to be, like I said, our focal point for our card today. And I really like how this turned out. It comes out really nice. And like I said, you do have the option where you could just subscribe to just the stamp, or you could subscribe to the stamp and the die. I felt like I needed to add a little bit more shimmer to my card front, so I am using Avery L's shimmer spray, and I'm not sure, I'm not able to find this anywhere, but I'll try to find it and link it down below. If not, I'll see if I can find something a little bit similar to this. And I like to use my heat tool just to dry it so that I'm not patient, so I need to dry it and get it so I can use it a little faster than waiting for it to dry. But that heat tool is great for just that type of thing. The little hearts that came with the die set are so cute, and I wanted to use them, and I thought maybe we could make just little shaker windows. Instead of doing one big shaker card, we're going to do little shaker windows. Using the magnetic mat that comes with my die cutting machine, it actually holds those dies right where I want them. I put my stamp sentiment down, made sure I had it where I wanted it to be, and then went ahead and die cutted the little hearts. And I think it came out adorable. And wait until you see how it shows up later on, especially when we make it into a shaker card. Off camera, I did go ahead and die cut the love die 3 more times so that I can use that instead of using foam tape to add dimension. I'm just going to stack these. I'm using my favorite liquid glue, which is the Barely Arts Precision Glue, which I absolutely love. It makes things so easy. It gives you enough time to kind of slide your cardstock or your die cuts around before it actually sticks, but it dries also very quickly. I'm going to go ahead and stack the 3 different layers together, and then I will then go ahead and add the top layer, which will be our embossed love sentiment. I was having fun just adding the glue and swirling around the letters. Once I have this layer done, I'm going to add my layer that has the embossed image on it, and I'm going to lay this underneath a acrylic stamping block, just to put some weight on top of it so that once it's dry, it's all flat and all the layers are adhered together. Using the background image where I did the blending and the die cutting of the hearts, I'm taking a piece of acetate and just cutting off 3 little squares that I can go ahead and add on to each one of those little hearts, because we're going to use those hearts as a little mini shaker windows. I'm going to add some glue around the outside and then put our acetate over each one. I just think that little bit of shaker element that we're adding to this gave the card something a little extra. So I'm just using the precision glue. You can use a tape runner, or if you have score tape or any kind of double-sided tape, you just want to make sure that your acetate is down so that when you put your shaker bits in, they don't come out of the holes. So I'm just going to add my blocks, let that dry, and once they are nice and dry, I'm going to come back and start adding some foam tape. The 3M foam tape that I'm using is a roll that I've had for many, many years, and for some reason it yellowed. And I did buy another roll because this one I'm getting to the end of, and it's doing the same thing. So it does make me wonder if, because I thought 3M foam tape, or this particular foam tape, was acid free. So if you were using them in scrapbooking and mounting them with a photo, what it would do to your photo. Anyway, it's not a photo, it's a card, so we're going to keep going here. I did cut them into strips so that I can make little boxes around each of those hearts, which is creating a little compartment for my shaker bits. However, this first one, I decided to make it a little bit more complicated than it needed to be, and when I get on to the other two, I will be a little bit simpler and just make kind of squares around it. I don't know what I was doing here. I guess I was just trying to figure it out. But for the other two, I'm just going to go ahead and put squares around each of those hearts. I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing off of my double-sided foam tape. Normally, I would double layer this foam tape so that we have a little bit of a deeper well, but for this card, I'm going to be using micro beads. If you're using sequins or something like that, which usually have a tendency to be domed, you might want to add a second layer of foam tape, but because of the micro beads, I don't need to, and it worked out perfectly. I'm just using this little tiny spoon that I've had for embossing powder to use it to scoop in the micro beads into each one of those sections. Did get a couple of them stuck onto the foam tape, but not as bad as I normally do. Normally I'd have a lot of them stuck to the foam tape. So the spoon was very helpful to make sure that I get those micro beads into each of those little compartments. I'm not sure where I got the micro beads. I'm pretty sure, though, I did get them at Michael's. It would be the only place I would ever pick them up. So they are great for making little mini areas of shaker cards like this, like micro areas for shakers. But they're great extra thing to add to any kind of shaker card. You can keep them for adding with regular sequins. I did go ahead and add some extra foam tape because I am going to be adding a piece of cardstock onto the back of this, which would then help me mount it to my card base. I'm pulling off the backing, and the one thing I am going to do is also add some liquid adhesive to the back of this as well, because it does make it easier when I go to put that extra piece of cardstock on there, that if I need to move things around, I'll be able to. I'm just using an 80-pound weight Nina cardstock for the back of my shaker piece, or my card front, my mini shaker piece. But I found this to be just the perfect little added touch to this card, and it made it really adorable. Now, one thing I did find out is that Bristol cardstock, I must have cut it wrong, which lately I seem to have a measuring issue. So I did have to trim down my piece of cardstock, which was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which means my card base that I have already prepared will need to be cut down as well. The little hearts that I die cut, I set aside, and I wasn't planning on using them, but after just kind of fiddling around and laying things out on my card, I decided they'd be cute just popped up onto the three different areas, kind of overhanging that window. So I did put a lot of work into making those the little shaker elements, but at the same time, adding these onto there just kind of added that little extra element that I really like. So I'm just using my paper piercing tool, which is a great tool to have around for pulling backings off of your foam tape, for trying to get those little crystals off of the backings that they're stuck to so you can put them onto your card fronts. It's a handy tool. I'm adding my three little hearts into very close to each one of those little heart areas that I die cut and made into my little mini shaker windows. The die set also came with some leaf, I think they're leaves, and I die cut those onto some green cardstock, which I don't remember what color the cardstock or what the company was, but I'll leave it linked below. I'm going to add that underneath my love sentiment, which I did go ahead and adhere down using the glue, and then I'm just going to kind of tuck those underneath before the glue completely dries on the love sentiment so that it gives just a little extra coming out from underneath. Before I add my sentiment to my card, I want to add a couple of gems. Now, I don't know if I'm the only one that struggles with gems or any kind of like enamel dots or anything like that that comes on acetate. Getting them off the acetate and onto my card without them flipping across the room or off the acetate and upside down or in the wrong spot. But I have found my paper piercer is a great tool because of the sharp end, and I found the Tim Holtz one has the best sharp end to help pick those up, and it kind of makes that process a little easier. So I'm just adding a couple of gems around each section of those hearts. Now here comes that card base that is cut to the right size, but now my card front is not. It's a little too small. So I'm going to adhere this down using some of the liquid glue, and I'm just going to kind of make sure I'm all to one side, and then I will trim this down with my scissors. And our final step is to add a sentiment. I'm using the Always, so my card says Love Always, from the stamp set. I'm stamping that out onto some black cardstock. Again, I'm going to do some embossing, so I added my anti-static. I'm going to ink that up with some VersaMark ink, and then we're going to go ahead and emboss it with white embossing powder. Once I have that embossed, I'm just going to use a cloth to wipe off that extra embossing or anti-static powder so that it's not all over my black cardstock. I'm going to use the label die that is in that kit and just die cut my Always sentiment, which we will die cut into a little strip. I'm not going to use the whole length. I'm just going to die cut a small portion of it, and then we'll add that to our card front. Using some mini foam squares. I'm just putting one square on each end because this will go over my love sentiment or the love focal piece, and it's going to hang over that E, and I knew I didn't need to put a foam square there. And the last thing I need to do is just cut off my overhang of my Always sentiment, and then I have this great card that says Love Always. I had a lot of fun making this card. I love the little shaker elements. One thing I wish I kind of didn't do was add those green leaves. I think it would have been fine without it, but they're there. So it's going to be a part of my card. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and all the supplies I used to make today's card are down below in the description. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.